This is the list. On this list, the greatest films ever made.
You know something? You're right.
Go ahead, make my day.
Alrighty then.
We're rolling sound.
What you just said
I drink it up!
is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
I experienced more with the film.
Here we go. Very quiet, please.
I have a very particular set of skills, and I will have my vengeance.
Action.
Scene. No, that's how you end a scene. How do you start a scene? And action.
Yep.
I should know that. This is a movie podcast. What's going on, guys? My name is John North. We got Dylan Grant and Dean Sidoris here on our second episode of Film Reel Review. And we're back. And I'm excited. And now I don't look like I'm in a sandstorm because Dean broke my balls enough that I went out and bought some $50 selfie light from Walmart. And I do admit it looks a lot better. So thank you, Dean.
I mean, you're the OG influencer of the batch here, so you gotta be right.
I know. I feel like I should be doing like nails or something. I don't know. Just
we'll do some like makeup tutorials.
Yeah, like
how to get platform ready.
yeah, that's
Exactly.
good. Dylan Grant, how we doing, baby?
I'm great. Yeah, I'm glad you don't look like you're an extra scene from Dune this time. It looks great.
What did Dean say?
He said,
Well, what did you say, Dean?
The sandstorm.
The sandstorm. Some planet.
And then it was. Oh no! I said Tatooine. You're not on Tatooine anymore.
Oh, okay.
The desert planet of Tatooine.
Yeah, it's good. No, we're upgrading. We're back. Last podcast did really well. A lot of people listened and comments on social media. Excited to do the second one with you gentlemen and just talk movies and the love of movies. And, we're going to be reviewing Pig today with Nicolas Cage. And then also, Dylan, right, we're combining a threesome list, top 5 Cage movie, right?
a menage a trois list. Yeah, we're going to give you a film review. Film reel review. I can't even say it. I'm going to edit that out. We're going to do a film reel review. Top 5.
Don't edit it out.
Top 5 Cage list. That you guys, if you're going to watch
a must-watch list.
It's a must-watch. Yeah, because you could dig up some dirt on Cage, or you could dig up some awesome stuff on Cage, and we're just try to bridge that gap and give you what we think is our honest opinion. What do they think?
You know what they say? Hey, that's the showbiz, baby. That's the show business.
Yeah. I mean, John Wick. What's that?
Keanu.
Like the Matrix is blown up. It's but you don't know.
Well, yeah, I think I don't want to get too much on a John Wick tangent, but the thing with John Wick is that it's it kind of fits right into that slot of modern day attention span. Like a lot of people out there don't want detailed storytelling. They just want to watch someone kick someone's ass for an hour and a half.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, I just think a lot of actors, of course, they read the script, they know the director maybe, and they have a good sense and a feel of the movie. And like, okay, I know this camera guy, and I know this one writer is really good. But at the end of the day, it's a gamble. I mean, like Cage probably has gambled a few movies, and they came out horrible, which is not even his fault. We always put blame on the actor, like, oh, Cage sucked. That's a horrible movie by Cage. It's actually no, Cage did really good, but the movie sucked.
Yeah. Well, when you have, when you got 6 alimonies you have to pay, you can't really turn down too much.
Yeah, he could have took a bad written movie to pay off some of those alimony checks, or he might have been directed poorly. You don't know that.
Yeah.
Could have been directed poorly.
Well, I mean, it's hard to think. If someone, I don't know how much he makes on some of these lower end movies he does, but hey, Cage, we're going to pay you $1 million to go shoot this.
I'm sure he doesn't take anything less than that.
$1 million for a 3-week shoot. Yes or no?
3 week
yes.
turnaround.
Yeah.
They could have shot Pig probably in 3 weeks.
I'm thinking that. Yeah. And I know the budget was only $4 million. So that is surprisingly low. That's very low.
And he probably got 50% of that budget.
For sure. Did you recognize anyone else in that movie? Maybe the dad, but other than that, no.
At first, when the movie first kicked in, I thought that the son was Pamela Anderson's son, who's an actor. It's not him, but he's in he was in the show The Hills. I don't know if you guys ever watched that show on MTV. It was pretty popular.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Tommy Lee and Pamela's son is an actor, and he actually looks just very similar to that kid. And I thought maybe that might have been him because I know he's been getting some roles.
Oh, okay.
Inspiring, but it wasn't him.
It wasn't him. No.
Yeah, no, it was irrelevant.
Definitely,
I thought it was him at first.
But then Dean and Dylan, and then you look at a guy like, I know we're going for kind of the king, we're talking about the king here now, but you look at a guy like Leonardo DiCaprio. Yeah. This guy's never done a bad movie.
No.
I mean, tell me a bad Leo movie.
He can't.
And I'll pay you $100. I'll give you 10 cases of this right here. I'll give you 10 cases of Ghosts.
The worst one was Gilbert Grape, in my opinion. And that was early Leo.
Well, that was his first movie.
Exactly. Okay, breakout role. Okay, biggest.
That was his first.
That's
role.
probably the worst one in my opinion, and that's just because I didn't like the story. That's my own thing.
Yeah, and that's
bad.
That's a good movie for a worst movie. Like that's the point. Like that's
exactly.
That's a good movie, and he killed that role too. Actually,
my wife loved that movie.
You know, so there's actors that just like Denzel. I mean, come on. I know we're talking about some,
the goats.
Top 5 best, the goats. But tell me a bad Denzel movie.
I know. What does that come from? Is it Dan?
I didn't really like Deja Vu. I will say it wasn't my cup of tea. But I think we're getting off track here. But we could just go on for hours, boys. But thank you guys for tuning in and write your top 5 best Cage movie list. And if you haven't seen Pig, please go see it, and please watch it blind. Right, guys? Watch Pig.
Well, if you haven't seen it,
before you listen to this,
you should probably turn this off. Yeah.
Yeah. Hit pause. Go watch it. Come back. Leave your reviews.
But
yeah. Leave me your reviews. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe. Come back.
Don't even watch the trailer. Don't look it up. Just watch it blind. Turn the volume up. Shut the lights off. Turn your phone off. Watch it, and let me know what you guys think here on the movie podcast. So let's start. Dylan, you brought us all together. You're the leader here of the podcast. So you start this bad boy out on your Pig review.
Okay, so I did go into it blind. All I heard was John say, "This is in my top 10," and go watch it. That's all I heard. That's all the knowledge I had of Pig.
Yeah, good.
I didn't know if he was the pig. I didn't know if there was a real pig. I didn't know where this is going.
Yeah. I mean, Cage's choices lately, he could have been the pig.
Could have been the pig.
Well, in the cover art for it, you don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
Nothing.
The cover
give you nothing.
Could it be a horror movie? Is this a horror movie? Is this you don't really know.
Yeah,
so it starts, and I got a little bit of like a Revenant feel. You know what I mean? We're speaking of Leo, like a little bit of a Revenant feel with the location and the cinematography a little bit. And there wasn't a lot of dialogue at the beginning. And this movie just slowly unfolds layer by layer as you go on. And you start with basically nothing, and you're just trying to figure out what's happening even. And then this Ferrari just pulls up in the middle of a forest, and you're like, because I didn't even know what the date was. I'm like, is this the 1900s? Like when is this supposed to be?
That's a good point, because his pajamas, like he's wearing like these old long johns.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's totally ratty. We find out why he's so dirty and gross later on in the movie. But then the guy comes up to pick up the supply. So like a real quick, brief breakdown of the plot here is there's a guy living in the woods, Nicolas Cage, and he has this pig, and he's basically a truffle hunter in Oregon, in the mountains of Oregon. And basically the suppliers come to him to pick up the product. He trades them for supplies, kind of living off the land. That's kind of the whole plot of this, or the whole story that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's really all you know starting out the early years. This guy's a truffle hunter, and you kind of figure out the truffles are worth a lot of money and they're hard to find, and there's actually truffle pigs. This is a real life thing. And so kind of a whole world, by the way, that we don't really know much about until now.
There was like a History Channel television, like reality show about truffle hunting, truffle pigs, kind of like Territory, kind of like a gold mining kind of show that was like fake reality. You know, it's like one of those like moonshiner shows. You know what I mean? It was kind of like it was like that, but it was truffle pigs and truffles. And I actually watched a really good Vice documentary about this guy, the truffle king in New York. This kid who was like 17 years old, who was like a millionaire, and he was like the truffle guy in New York City for like the best restaurants in the world. He was, it was kind of like that kid in the movie.
Yeah.
I would almost guarantee you that it was probably written around the actual kid in New York City that's doing that. Because it was like big on the Vice documentary, like back when Vice was like still good,
prevalent. Yeah.
And
So, man, that's crazy. Like, where would you find truffles in New York? Like in the concrete jungle? That'd be very hard to access.
Yeah, I think, exactly. And they pay the premium there too, right? Because of the cuisine that's there. So, I mean, he obviously gets them imported and he gets the wholesale pricing, and then he's the one delivering them to the restaurants, right? He's the guy probably dealing with the Nicolas Cages out there.
Right.
Yeah.
And the way at the beginning too, the way Nick Cage is making this quiche or pie like nothing else in the world matters. Beautiful scene. Like I would 100% focused on this quiche or whatever the hell he made.
Yeah, it was definitely a quiche. And I would say honestly, I think my favorite part or my favorite thing about the movie, if I had to pick out like one part of like the process of the movie that I liked the most, was probably the cinematography and the shots.
Yeah.
The shots were prime. Even like when the title scene comes up, when it's shot like on the ground through that door opening, and he's out there with the pig, and then it just says pig in the words in that little frame that they make with the door being open.
Yeah.
Just like little shots like that. I think it was just shot like really, really, really good. Really good framing.
Well, we should also add, I know we probably mentioned this last podcast, but the writer and director of Pig, this was his debut film.
I knew it. I knew it.
Crazy.
His name's Michael Sornansky.
This guy came out of nowhere and put this, well, I won't say what I think about it yet until my turn, but he put this film together. Pretty impressive for his first film.
And I looked him up. And I seen that he had done like some semi-popular TV or something before. Like I think he got some credibility through TV. I did a little bit of research on him. I don't really remember what it was, but he did a good job. You can definitely tell he's inspired by like 90s style cinematography. You know, he's definitely got that like Miller's Crossing kind of vibe, Coen-esque, like long shots and silence.
Well, he didn't rush it. It was very patient.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Dylan was saying, it took its time in the beginning. He made you feel the situation. He made you feel it, and he took his time. And to me, like, gosh, if I was making my first movie, I'd almost be too eager to have a scene come up or something exciting happen, or I'd rush it probably.
Right.
Yeah, for being an hour and 23 minutes only, it felt like the movie was 2 hours long. You know, it was a relatively short movie, but the way that the whole story is told visually and emotionally through like facial expressions and like physical acting, not necessarily dialogue or script at all.
Yeah. And I was willing to
script, like anybody, any three of us could have wrote that script.
Yeah.
As far as like the dialogue, that's not what was like what held the movie together and what made it interesting. It was the emotion through the acting with like the motion and stuff like that, and the cinematography in general. That's what moved the whole story.
I was willing to bet on this podcast today without looking him up, because I haven't looked him up yet, but this writer and director definitely took a risk on this film where he could have lost everything. Like it could have just flopped and been terrible. But I think he was so passionate about doing it his way that he held out and he found like smaller production companies that were willing to take a risk with him, because Warner Brothers wouldn't have touched this. Like they want to do action figure movies and stuff. Like they want home runs, right? Yeah.
And look, Cage is a superstar. He's won an Academy Award. I understand that he's done some tough movies lately and he's kind of on the comeback, but how did he get Cage? Think about that. I mean, the plot of this movie, an unknown director, a movie out in the woods of Oregon with the plot on paper kind of looks odd without the emotion coming out. How do you get Cage?
Even if you just read that script without knowing the director or his style, you'd be like, this is a piece of shit.
That too.
Like this movie, the ending is like, it's not a good ending as far as like happy ending. You know, it's not like this like rebirth story. You know, it's not this like comeback story at all. It's not this like heroic story. It's actually very, very sad the whole time. And like big studio isn't going to touch a movie like that. They need more of like a satisfied. You don't finish this movie feeling satisfied really for anybody. It's just still kind of sad.
Yes. But
it's real. Yeah, it's real.
It's real. It is real. But I think you do, like, we'll get to the ending, but I think the way he did it without saying, like we said, it's written mediocrely, but the way he showed what he was feeling throughout this film and the way this director tried to portray what he wanted to be felt by the audience, I think was really well done. And I think that was three separate guys, being the son, the father, and Cage, getting over like losing a loved one. Like, I think that was the whole theme of the movie that slowly came out over time. Like, I think the way he executed that was brilliant to me, with what Dean called the meal, the meal towards the end of the movie. Yeah.
My favorite scene. Well, Dylan, if you had to rank this movie F- to A+, what are you gonna give this movie?
Oh boy. There's a lot. I still want to talk about more, but right now I'm gonna give it between a B and B+.
It's a good ranking.
Between B and B+.
It's a solid ranking.
A B.5.
So you liked it?
I did like it, yeah, because I think he really wasn't willing to. He could have probably done this movie with a bigger company, but they would have wanted to rewrite it. They would have wanted to redirect it, maybe a little bit different. He really stuck to his guns, and he's like, he probably wrote this 10 years ago. And he was probably just like, I want to do it my way. Like, I'm going to wait and hold out to do it my way, or it's not going to come out the way I want. And this is like my baby. This is my big movie. This is it. Like, I'm going to do it my way, no matter what happens. And I respect that more than just copying, pasting most stories that we see in the movie theaters today.
Yeah.
That we know.
It was original for sure. And real. How do you think Cage did?
Might be my favorite Cage character.
Hey, there we go.
And I'll tell you why. That's
a big statement.
He didn't do what I call the Cage face. And it might be because of the beard, it might be because of the hair, but he always has this face in his films that I can't even replicate. But he does it too much, I think. I think when he hears "We want you in a movie," he goes to set and then he just puts on this eyebrow face, and he does it the whole movie. And this one, he felt a little more honest, and like he wasn't overdoing it. You know what I mean? He wasn't overacting in any way. And I think that's why I liked him.
Yeah, he showed a lot of control, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I agree. And I honestly, Dylan, I think this movie was written for Nicolas Cage. I don't think that the director had anybody else in mind, I don't think, to play this character. I think he wrote this for an older Nicolas Cage. That's how it felt, at least. I just don't know who else you put in that role and get anybody to watch it.
Well, but Dean, it kind of fits who Cage is today. I mean, think about it. It's an older Cage has been through a lot in life. Especially the last 10 years, he's been kind of washed up and forgotten about, and kind of in solitude. And with all these low budget movies he's filming around the world, the regular Hollywood people probably haven't seen Cage in 10 years. And I mean, I know he's done like The Croods and some Hollywood smashers, but for the most part, this movie is Cage. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You're so right, though.
No. That's a good point. I was also going to just kind of add that. Also, just kind of the scene where they go to that kind of underground the weirdest part of the movie. They go to that little underground where you can basically pay to beat up on like homeless people, vagrants in Portland, right? Is that basically kind of what that was?
Well, my wife said that she thinks it's the the waiters and waitresses and the people that work with the chef, it's their time to beat up the chef for how mean they are.
Ooh.
So like a Chef Ramsay or something, right? Like they get to pay to hit Chef Ramsay type thing. But I don't know if that's right or not.
Well, they showed I think that's half right. I think that it was just they just unleashed their anger in general on whoever's willing to kind of take the punches, and they get paid for it.
Yeah, because then he got a hotel after or something, right? Like he was able to, I guess, live for a couple of days to find his pig.
Kind of like a in a Fight Club in a way, like Fight Club.
Yeah, but you don't fight back.
Off the first person you see was like a homeless guy standing there taking the punches that looked kind of like Cage. And it was just some random homeless dude. It wasn't like another employee. But then he writes his name down and everybody knows who he is. And everybody has an opinion on him because of how he was probably like hard to work with, or that guy even potentially even did work for him and he fired him or whatever. Remember, they never really explained why he was kind of like, I guess they kind of explained why he quit or just kind of took off from this scene, but there definitely looks like he definitely left some people pissed off along the way. It wasn't necessarily important to the story though. Like they didn't really need to explain it too much. He was a celebrity to these people, but also pissed off a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of why it's fitting that Cage played it, because he, they kept saying he used to be someone in this town, and that's kind of like Cage in a way, right? Like he hasn't done anything amazing in 10 years maybe. And this was his, it was perfect.
I forgot to mention, that was the point I was trying to make, was I think that almost like those physical shots that he was taking were like the online, the blogs, the media, the people just beating on him literally, like they just kind of show us that through like this like scene with him getting like punched in the face by everybody and still like coming back and like taking his money and moving on.
Boy, dude, you really hit this on the head. I never even thought of it that way. This movie is Cage, and you're right. This wraps up kind of his last 10, 12 years in the movie industry, it seems. And personally, it seems like he's gone through a lot personally with going bankrupt and whatever, so Cage just taking the hits and his emotion. Like I felt watching this movie that Cage, he was so in this movie. This wasn't just like, okay, pay me my money, I'll show up for 3 weeks, let's shoot this film and let's move on. Like I've seen some lower budget movies of Cage like on Netflix and stuff, because I like to watch Cage movies, and you could just tell the movie kind of sucks. Cage is not really in it. You could tell he's doing it for kind of a paycheck. But this movie, it was different.
It was. No, it looked like he wanted to do this one.
Super different. And I think the way that Dean said it was written for him makes me curious, because this Michael guy, this director and writer, hasn't really done much yet. And that's the same way Ben Affleck and Matt Damon got started, was they had to write a part specifically for Robin Williams just for the movie to get picked up, or no one was going to touch it. So they wrote that part specifically for Williams. And obviously he was super different in that than what we were used to seeing from Robin Williams. And I think that was kind of the blueprint for this, where maybe he did write it for Cage and that's how it got off the ground. And then you just saw this totally different Cage that you've never seen before. That's very interesting. I would be interested to know if that's.
They had a very like, I'm sure as time will go, we'll get more interviews with the director on that. Shit, maybe we will even try and hit him up and try and get him to hit him up in an email and just try and get some feedback. You never know. It's kind of got that John Travolta Tarantino vibe, right? Like Travolta's career was in the shitter. He was making nothing. No one wanted to work with Travolta. Tarantino basically writes that part for him in Pulp Fiction and just recreates his entire career. The studios didn't even want to touch Pulp Fiction because Travolta was in it, and Tarantino was like, "No, like either he's in it or I'm not making this movie. Like this, he has to be in this movie." And boy was he right, because could you picture anybody else playing that part? It was going to be either him or the guy from Reservoir Dogs, the guy that cuts the other dude's ear off, Vince Vega, Mr. Blonde.
No, I don't know.
Reservoir Dogs. That was who was going to potentially play Vince Vega. That's the character in Pulp Fiction, John Travolta's character.
Well, I think John Travolta also got to a little typecast with Grease, and kind of like Leo did with the Titanic. And I think it took a long time I think it took a few movies. It took some time for Leo to kind of get out of that Titanic image. Kind of like Justin Timberlake with NSYNC. It took him a while, to get out of that. It was an interesting role. I thought it was so perfect for Cage to play because, like Dylan said, there's not a lot of talking. It was such a Nicolas Cage acted with his emotion, physical acting, where Cage is known for being so high octane. So it was a 360 for everybody, animated. So we're watching like, oh my gosh, we've never seen this side of Cage before. Like, this is like emotional, sad, demons in the closet, skeletons of the past. Nicolas Cage. We're like, I'm watching this movie thinking like, is Cage okay? Is he acting, or is Cage really going through something like this? Because personally, I thought it was definitely Cage's best movie he's ever done.
I think I second that, for sure. I think I second that.
It's hard to, I agree, but then it's also like, it's hard to say because he's never really done anything remotely like this. There's nothing really to put it against. Like, what do you put this against that he's done? You can't put this against National Treasure or fucking Gone in 60 Seconds or Face Off or. Well,
Matchstick Man was emotional, where he gets tricked by his so-called daughter. That's an underrated Cage movie, by the way. I don't know if you guys have seen Matchstick Man.
I haven't.
I went from, as far as Cage movie viewings, I went from Primal. I don't know if you guys have seen Primal yet. It's one of his newer movies. It came out, I think, a year or two ago. And that character is kind of similar to this guy. I want you guys to watch it. I don't want to give that like too much, but it's kind of got that same kind of, this is new kind of thing he's doing now where he's not doing too much.
It's better.
It's better.
Same with that.
Yeah,
you're right. Same with that weird movie, Willy's Funhouse movie he did, where he doesn't say a word he doesn't say a word in the entire movie.
Didn't watch it, but
where he's just
I think better is a tough word.
Chuck E. Cheese.
I think for right now it's better, but we wanted Face Off. We wanted Cage in Face Off, right? Like we wanted Cage in Con Air. Like we want Cage in some of his elaborate roles. So at the time, but for right now, I think it's perfect what he's doing. I really do. So Dean, I didn't officially ask you, like, what do you think about this movie as a whole? And what do you rank it F- to A+?
I'm happy I watched it. I don't know what kind of mood I would need to be in to watch it like again. Maybe I do need to watch it again though, and just pick up on some different things I didn't see in the first go. But I think a B is really solid. I just don't. It's not personally my style of like what I look for in like a good movie, I guess.
You look for Boba Fett in the background?
Yeah, no. I don't know. I'm honestly like, my movie taste is the complete opposite. Like my favorite directors are like the Tarantinos and the Coen brothers, where it's like the entire movie is dialogue. And all is the writing, is the dialogue, the writing and the dialogue is like what I like the most. Like the way that they say things, the slang that's chosen, just like all that kind of stuff, the conversations amongst cast, members. And that's the only reason why it's not higher ranked in my personal opinion, is because of that. Like I want like the stupid conversation on what the song "Like a Virgin" by Madonna was like for 30 minutes, at the diner, like in Reservoir Dogs, like the whole beginning of that movie's 30-minute bit on a song, on a music video. You know what I mean? Like that kind of, I like that kind of stuff, like the kind of really niche, weird conversations. But like visually and story wise and like the acting, like it was a great movie. Like as far as like well done movies, it's about as good as an independent film as you can really ask for. But my personal taste is what gets in the way there, right? But yeah, I think everybody should watch it.
Let me ask you guys both the question, and I'll go come on the third wheel here and put a bow on the ranking, and I give it a solid A. Give it a solid A. Give it a solid A. So, yeah, I'm not going to give it an A plus, but I'll give it a solid A. And I loved it. It is in my top 10, and I got to figure out where I got to redo my top 10, kind of figure out where movies are sitting here. So
we'll do a top 10 list one day.
Yeah.
After this picks up a bit. But yeah.
Yeah. I just go ahead. Sorry, Bill.
Sorry, I was just going to ask you, John, personally, you gave it an A.
Yeah.
What would give it that A plus for you? Because Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 97.
Yeah. Rotten Tomatoes loved it. So
97.
I watched this movie and loved it. Obviously, like top 10, solid A. Score. And then so I'm like, man, I want to go. So I went to some of my movie review guys on YouTube. They loved it. I'm like, oh, whoa. So it's not just me. I went to Rotten Tomatoes. They loved it. I'm like, whoa, I'm not the only one here. So you guys liked it. So, this universally is a movie that people really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was well done. Like there's just no secret. Like this movie could have easily been just totally destroyed.
So, I don't know what would have made it an A plus. It's the best way to answer that is just, I don't know. There's some movies, and me and Dean have talked about this on my weightlifting talk show, in the past. It's like, why are certain movies in your top 5? And it's hard to explain why. They just emotionally hit you and connect with you in ways that you can't explain. Like The Queen's Gambit, right off the bat, A plus, number 1, my favorite movie of all time.
You got to stop calling it a movie because it's not a movie.
It's definitely a movie. Please stop. It's definitely a movie. So I don't know. I thought the movie was great because it just dealt with grieving.
Yeah, 100%.
It's just grieving, pain, sorrow. And we've all have gone through that to a certain extent. We can relate to this movie to a certain extent. And I think that's why it hits us hard. And you add in the cinematography, you add in the acting by Cage, you add in the raw emotion, not overacting, not too many lines, it didn't get too action packed. I think it's an important movie for people to watch personally, because
I would agree with that.
The ending of the movie, he went through all of that to in a way get some closure with his passed away wife, and that's why at the very end he was able to put in that cassette tape in the boombox and listen to his wife sing that song at the end all the way through. Right. Yeah. Because in the very beginning, he listened to like the first 2 seconds of it and then turned it off because he was still grieving. He wasn't, 15 years? He wasn't able to move on.
But I also, sorry to cut you off, John. I think he didn't let himself start the process to move on. Just like the son didn't let himself start to move on about his mother, because he was always on the go hustling, trying to impress his father. He always had classical music blaring in the car rather than sitting in silence with his own thoughts.
Yeah, I like that. And
he wasn't letting himself, the dad wasn't letting himself move on from his wife being a vegetable because he was just being an asshole and working as hard as he possibly could. None of them really took a step back and just began that process. And that was the thing that hit most for me, is that all 3 of these guys needed to find each other for them to start the grieving process, which was incredible. That was my favorite part of the movie.
I think my favorite part, we're going to go on favorite parts now, it's probably a good segue, I think would be the conversation he has with the chef that had his own restaurant that he fired. That little hoity-toity restaurant where they go and have that meal where he gets the reservation, that lunch that they have.
That's my personal favorite. That's my personal favorite scene.
Yeah, I agree. And I loved how he basically breaks down. He basically tells him how he feels about the restaurant, that he doesn't even really care about it. He's just doing it because he feels accomplished, but he's not doing what he likes. He's just doing it because of the false perception of like accomplishment that it gives him. but deep down, he's not happy with it at all. He doesn't even like the food he's cooking. He doesn't like the setup at all. The guy wanted to open up a pub with like a certain menu, and that was his passion. But he didn't do that. He went and did something for other people that he didn't even have any passion for. Like basically not doing what he wants to do with his life, and did like, basically it's like, do you want to love what you do, or do you want to do what you have to? It's like a job, right? Like you want to go, it was like very, it was a horrible way of breaking that down, but
no, it was really good.
Yeah.
Beautifully said.
But yeah, apparently I can't really talk today. But yeah, it was, I liked that scene because the guy just like is like kind of laughing it off, but like understanding that he's like smiling behind tears and smiling in front of tears, right? He's like, oh God, this guy like just read me like a book.
Yeah.
Yeah. This guy who I didn't even think remembered me.
You could tell
he had exactly what I'm feeling. Yeah. Yeah.
He had a lot of pain, and he knew he was right. He was doing it for other people and not himself. You know what I mean? And it reminds me of me back in the seminar days. I traveled the world doing these seminars. It was all about other people. Like, yes, of course, I had income coming in my way on, with trade. I had a piece of that, but I was so much more concerned about pleasing, people, CrossFitters and weightlifters, and making them happy. That my relationship suffered and my happiness suffered, and gosh, I died at the zoo, and then 4 or 5 months later I was working at the night shift at a wood mill. Nobody was there, and what was it for? It's when you do something just for nothing but for just to please other people, you're just left with an emptiness inside of you.
It's brutal. There's a quote by a guy named Bernard Shaw that was kind of reiterated and taken over by a guy named Nipsey Hussle, who passed away. And it was like, would you rather be at war with yourself and at peace with the world, or at peace with yourself and at war with the world? And that was kind of like what he was going through as a chef. The world looked at him like, oh, this guy's awesome and stuff. But internally with himself, he was just battling this shit that he got no fulfillment out of. Mm-hmm. But on the outside, it looked like he was doing great. And I think that's important for everyone in whatever you choose to do with your life.
And that was that chef. I mean, I hate to get too deep here, but we're not on this planet long. And let me tell you something right now. Be happy. And if you're not, get happy. Strive for that. Just like people want to wake up and hustle every day and buy a Ferrari or become rich. Like, no, wake up and be happy. How can I set up my life and put myself in certain situations around certain people, by the way, that's going to make me happy? That should be the ambition, and that's what Cage was saying.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's the underlying tone of kind of the whole movie.
Be happy, do it because you love it. And therefore, it reminds me of Donnie Schenkel, a weightlifter.
Legend.
Donnie would always say, because I am selfish, I have affected millions. Right. Basically saying, because Donnie was so selfish and just so focused on his goals, hundreds of thousands of people, I'd say even millions of people around the world have been positively influenced by Donnie due to the fact that Donnie was doing, what he wanted to do for his Olympic goal, and there's of course, Donnie would take his shirt off for you. He would do amazing things for people. So don't think that saying he's selfish is the wrong term, but he was selfishly focused on his goals, on what he wanted to do. And therefore people around him thrived. So that's like the guy opening the pub and saying, hey, I'm going to do this because I love it, because he loves it so much. Other people will love it.
Yeah. Regardless if it fits in that town or not, his passion and his, ambition and his excitement about it would have made it successful.
It's infectious.
Because look what he did with the restaurant that he wasn't even passionate about. It was the hottest restaurant in town, and he hated it. Mm-hmm. So imagine if he did something that he was actually truly passionate about. It would have been even better, even bigger. He knew exactly the menu he wanted to have at the pub. Still, he thought about it clearly every day.
Well, go ahead.
Oh no, that was it.
No, I was going to say, I thought about Dean. I thought about you big time on this when he cooked. I don't know. This might be my favorite scene when he cooked dinner for the dad to bring out the emotions of the father's passed away wife, but she was grieving still on. And the meal, the taste of the wine, the smell of the wine, the whole aura of it basically took that dad's wall down, right? He laid his sword down. He got emotional. He cried. The pig's actually dead. I'm sorry. He just broke. And it's that emotion. It's that sentimental, that past emotion that just holds on to us, you know? And Dylan, I know you haven't known Dean for a while, but like Dean's like me in this way, or I should say I'm like Dean in this way, because Dean's probably more of this than I am. But, you know, Dean's like a 90s kid, and, you know, Dean, like, he's very sentimental. I'll just put it that way. And I am too. Like, you know, Dean has a lot of sentimental value in his childhood and in his experiences with his parents, and especially as his father. And it sticks with us forever. And Cage knew that as a chef. And it wasn't even really about the food. It was about what he ate for that connection. Mm-hmm. And I thought that scene was remarkable, how we all have the connect. We all have connection to the past like that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And even the way that Nicolas Cage kind of collapses, right, and breaks down when he hears the news that he knew was already true. I think deep down he knew that the pig was dead, and he just didn't want to admit it, right? They even kind of have a conversation, him and the son, when he asks him, like, where he said something like, I wish I never would have came looking for it. That way in my head, he would still be alive. And then the son says to him, yeah, but he wouldn't be.
Yeah. And I think that was a double.
Like, man.
I think that was a double entendre of him dealing with his wife too. Like he didn't want to reintegrate with the real world again because he didn't want it to be real. And I think when the kid said, but she is though, it kind of just reassured him that, okay, my wife is dead no matter what I do. So do I want to kind of keep living like this or not? Well,
the pig was leading him to truffles, you know, for however long. But the bow on the movie is that the pig led him to dealing with his wife's passing.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, that the pig is the reason why he went on that whole journey. And then at the very end was able to kind of have some peace in his life, was because of the pig, you know?
Well, he said it earlier. He's like, I don't need the pig to find truffles. Like the trees show you where the truffles are. Like it had, the pig was useless, basically.
I take back my favorite scene.
It was like more of a companionship.
Yeah. And I wondered if the wife gave it to him or they had it together before she passed away. Like that crossed my mind, although they never said it. So maybe
you just had it. Maybe you just had it and then like, started to figure out like, oh wait, there's a connection there. Or there's a common denominator here. They're always going by these certain trees and he just kind of figured it out.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I take back everything I said on the scenes. My favorite scene is actually the one when Dylan, you just said it with the trees.
Yeah.
And then the kid goes, well, then why are we looking for the pig then? Or something like that. And then Nicolas Cage goes, because I loved her.
Yep.
And like that hit me, man. Like that was I had a tear going down my eye on that one. Like, oh, like just straight up because I loved her. You know, wow. It's just powerful, you know, like no beating around the bush, just straight up.
Yeah, that's what that movie was. It was just straight an emotional unfolding the whole time.
Yeah,
there wasn't deeper and deeper.
There wasn't a wasted sentence in that movie. Everything had a purpose. Mm-hmm. Every scene, every dialogue, everything was like very direct purpose. There wasn't any kind of like filler. There's no filler at all, right? Yeah. It's kind of like, man, I wish more movies were more direct like this. Like I watched another movie recently and actually I'll just say what it was. It was the King Richard movie. And it's like 2.5 hours long. And it's about, you know, Will Smith playing Serena Williams and Venus Williams' dad.
Yeah.
Right. And the movie's basically wrote for Will Smith to try and get like an Oscar. Basically, is like what this movie was created for, right? It's his like Oscar nominated. That's just it's his Oscar chance movie, and that's basically how it was wrote. for him to do this, but there was just so much filler. It's 2.5 hours of just like, most of it's bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, it was a very frustrating movie. And like, I don't know what else was really going to compete with it. And they'll probably just kind of give him his like tip of the hat Oscar for it, I think. But it was like, anyways, there wasn't any of that in this movie. I don't want to talk too much about that movie, but it was just kind of like, I didn't feel that same energy with this one. It was very direct. It was very purposeful. There was nothing.
See, one of my favorite movies is Love, Liza with Philip Seymour Hoffman. And if you're a Philip Seymour Hoffman fan, you're probably thinking, wait a minute, how have I not heard about this movie? It's the most underrated, you know, fallen in the cracks movie ever. It's a really good movie. It reminds me a lot of this Cage movie. And it's a slower movie. It's extremely sad, extremely emotional. It's Philip Seymour Hoffman at his best, but it reminds me a lot of that, Dean, where there's no waste of time. Every line is impactful. It takes its time, and you really feel it. And, you know, just
is it Pirate Radio?
What do you mean, Pirate Radio?
Isn't that what movie are you talking about? Isn't he in that movie, Pirate Radio?
No, the one I'm talking about here is Love, Liza.
Oh, you said it. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, you watch it. It'll mess with you.
R.I.P. Philip.
Yeah, I love Liza. So I mean, it's just.
Speaking of filler, though, like there's the creators of the South Park, or the writers of the South, Trey Parker and Matt Stone. They have a way they write, and it goes like, every scene you're going to go from or to has to have like a but or a therefore after it. There should be no and then this happens and then this happens, because then you get left with filler that just takes you out. Like, why the fuck? Like, why is this in it? Why am I watching this? It does nothing. It doesn't pertain to the story at all. So they stick to this, but this happens, but this happens, therefore this happens.
Yeah.
And they just stick with that. And that's why they have like this 30-year show that always seems to like open our eyes a little bit.
I love to listen to NPR.
Yeah.
And you think that's probably, if you know me, you're probably kind of taken back right now, because my political views and the way my mind works and the way I see the world is very, very, very different than NPR. But for some odd reason, NPR is extremely just zen for me. I don't know what it is. But on like road trips, I'll put on NPR and I'll just go for hours listening to NPR, disagreeing with probably 90% of what they're saying on a lot of stuff. But I like some of the conversations and the debates and some of the stories they do. And it's not all political, and they tell fascinating stories. It's the way they talk, you know, and the little ding, 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 the little music and stuff. I don't know, man. It's nice. So I'm just kind of painting a picture here. But what I can't stand, and this happens on NPR and in other places, is when really smart people, well-educated people start talking, and maybe it might be a lecture, and they talk for like 20 minutes and they said nothing. They said nothing. Like if you get somebody like on, you know, a news channel or something that's talking or going, you know, maybe like a little debate or, you know, making their point politically, and they're using all these big words and they're a double PhD or whatever it may be. I'll just be like, this person just said nothing for the last 5 minutes. You just used big words. You rambled. You're just breathing air. And I think that's what some movies do.
Of course. Yeah, that's what they do at university too. Like you have to write a 5,000 page essay. I'm going to have to enunciate and elongate everything just to make it 5,000 words, or else it's not going to meet the deadline. So I think that's where they learn it. And then exactly.
Just tell me, like when Cage was like, because I loved her. Just tell me.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This movie by definition is a perfect example of sometimes less is more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's well said. Big time.
Very well said. And there's one other scene I want to talk about is the baguette scene.
Is seen at his old restaurant?
Yeah. And it's
either
now,
his daughter or an employee.
Okay. Yeah. And the whole dialogue, it's like 5 minutes of dialogue. It's all shot on a long shot. They don't go over the shoulder once or close up once. And I thought that was, from a filmmaking standpoint, like an incredible risk for one to keep us entertained that long without switching the shot at all. But I think they did a great
tripod stationary shot from like a 35 millimeter framed shot. I don't even know. It was like, and it was just her getting up once to grab the baguette.
Yeah.
And then I loved how they even like the subtle things, like how she gives him that cookie or whatever it was. And then he's like, can I have two? And then she pushes the tray to him and he picks up one and then puts it back and then grabs the one behind it because it looked better.
Oh,
didn't even notice that.
I'm like, oh
he's
man.
the chef. Yeah.
Because he knew he was going to give it. He wanted it to look as good as possible when he gave it to his, his only friend now, right? Because he gives it to the kid, and he wanted to make sure it was perfect, the perfect one when he would like gift it.
Yeah,
little shit like that. That's what makes this movie so good. But
it's true. It's the tiny stuff because you feel like you're in that scene. You feel like you're in the movie. It's kind of like Saving Private Ryan. Like you feel like you're on the boat going into the on the beach, where it's like M. Night Shyamalan, the way he moves directs the camera, where the scenes don't edit. They just smoothly turn. They'll just move character to character, and they'll turn and twist, and like literally like 30 seconds of the movie is just panning to the next person. And M. Night Shyamalan's like, I'm gonna keep you here. We're gonna slowly move over here to Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense or something, and you're gonna freaking wait because we're not rushing this. Like I like what Dean said. I love movies like that. Like if we talk about horror movie, that's why I love Blair Witch Project. What an original concept. It wasn't overdone. It was like people in the woods that were confused and scared, and you're freaking out the whole time.
Yep.
Like it's genius.
Yeah, they never show you anything.
Nothing. Think about it.
But you're totally engaged.
That's so hard to do without being like terrible. That's so hard to do.
Yeah.
I think
it's crazy.
And there was a scene in Pig where one of the final scenes when he's walking back to the cabin and where the director, it was a very, very slow pan and it's out of the window. So the camera's in the house where he's walking to, and Cage is out and he appears out of the woods. And the camera's just slowly panning.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Then you see him in another window, and Cage is a little closer now. And then you see him in the doorstep. And I wonder how many times they had to do that to get the timing right. Because the camera doesn't stop and Cage doesn't stop. So the timing has to be like perfect for him to be in all three spots in one shot. So that was cool.
Yeah. And it was kind of funny how they started and ended the movie on like kind of the same shot. The same shot even too, like that door through the door shot. That was good.
Wait, but I also think we've mentioned John Wick, and one thing I do love about John Wick. I mean, I do like the John Wick movies. I like them. I don't love them. They're not in like my top 10 or anything, but I enjoy them. I do think that John Wick does have a little of that punch to the gut with emotion with the dog and the passing of his wife. Like they did a good job of rooting that, I think, compared to some other action movies. But and Keanu Reeves is great, but I love the fact that the fight sequences were so choreographed, and they didn't edit any of them for the most part, right? Like you're there, and now you see action movies really copying that, because some action movies you see and it's just edit, and the camera's moving. You're like, this is a movie. But you watch John Wick, you're like, oh man, they're actually doing that.
Yeah.
Well, most action movies, they hide with the camera motion, right? They hide the shitty fighting. They hide the bad choreography with just moving the camera around fast. So you can't see the missed punches and the fake punches. Way faster, way cheaper to make a movie like that. Where Keanu Reeves probably trained for 8 months doing, taekwondo, jujitsu, boxing for probably a year before they even shot a scene, just so they could nail those. It's way more difficult to make it, but that's why those movies are blockbusters now, right? Like,
actually, Dean, you know what this movie reminded me of is Drive.
Ooh, what, the Cage movie?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, I could see it.
Just the cinematography, it took its time.
Very Drive did take its time. Yeah.
Very emotional, like but I tell you right now, what's his name?
I love Drive.
He freaking killed that role. Killed that role.
He's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Drive's great.
Yeah, that's another guy that that broke off that Notebook stereotype and has gone ham on some movies.
Oh yeah, dude. Like he can do everything. He can do everything now.
I'm a diehard fan of Blade Runner 2049, so you don't need to convince me.
And I got you on that movie, baby.
I honestly, I was skeptic because I just went with what everybody was saying, but I also like the first ones, and that one didn't get much respect either. But you know,
I think it gets more respect now.
Ryan Gosling,
yeah.
So good.
Yeah, look, I think people are going to watch Pig and probably have some mixed. I think everybody's going to say it's a good movie. It's up to you to think if it's good or if it's great or if it's really great. I don't think anybody's watching this movie saying it's bad, and I don't think anybody's knocking Cage. I think everybody's points for Cage went up boop, 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 for sure after this movie.
It's one of those movies if you're not paying attention and really sitting down and watching it, and you just kind of have it on. And then all of a sudden it's over and you weren't really sucked into the story, then you would think it would suck. I think that's the only way you could not like it is if you just had it on and you were playing with your kids or you were cooking or you were having a conversation with somebody that was over and it was just kind of on. You're like, oh, this movie's boring. This movie sucks or something like that. In that situation, I could see that being the case, but yeah, no, it's a good, and it's only an hour and 23 minutes. I mean, that's so short.
And by the way,
that's a long TV show.
Yeah. And that movie's Oregon, by the way, like straight up the weather, the trees, the roads, how they really captured the Portland, Oregon era or aura.
Aura, yeah.
Also, I totally forgot about this scene. Someone fill me in because like maybe something happened where like I answered a text or something. Who the hell's house was that? And who was that kid he was talking to in the backyard?
Oh, that was his old house.
Scene.
That was Cage's old house. He used to live there with his wife.
And then that kid he just wandered. Some random kid.
He just wandered into the backyard of his old house, and some kid was playing.
Okay, so I didn't really miss anything besides the fact that like I assumed it was like his house or something or his old. Like I assumed that, but like I thought maybe he knew someone that lived there because then he's just talking to this kid in the backyard.
Yeah. Would you let that guy talk to your kid? Looking like that?
Yeah, no.
I don't think the parents even knew he was back there with them.
But that was a part of the grieving. That was part of the healing.
Yes, 100%.
Of going back to his home with his wife. And like, that's like, or was it his childhood house or was it his house with his wife?
I think it was the one with the wife.
Yeah. I think it was the house. Yeah, it was.
He's been in the woods for 15 years, right? Yeah, John's absolutely right. It was part of the grieving process. He hasn't been there since she passed. Crazy.
Tell you what, it made me want to get a nice skillet and just cook all my meals on it. That movie. It's the same skillet. Kind of how he had the one skillet that he even let the pig eat out of and stuff too. That was,
yeah. Well, I admire, and I'll end it with this because I got to go here in like 5 minutes. But I guess we'll do it a top 5 Cage next time or something. But
yeah, we'll run that back.
We'll run that back. I admire. Nobody's perfect. Everyone goes through hard times. People make mistakes. I don't really fully know Cage's life issues and what he's gone through. But I admire the man on how hard he works. This guy's putting out like 30 freaking movies a month, it seems like. This guy works, man. And sometimes I think he works too much. I'm like, Cage, relax, enjoy your family. This is a lot of movies, but the guy's got a good work ethic, and I've always admired that. So, but hopefully he does less movies now after seeing the response of this movie and does more art films.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think Cage, I don't think, Dean, he needs to get all Hollywood again. Like, let's get in the art world, baby.
100% agree.
Sorry, what were you saying? Sorry.
No, yeah, I was gonna say no more primals and no more. There was another one I watched where his family
cabin. I know.
No, there was one where his family. He was like a part of this like group of like kind of bad guys, right? And then his family his daughter gets kidnapped in like a home invasion situation and accidentally killed, and it's like it's his revenge. I think it's called like something of like kind of it's relatively new. I mean, this guy comes out with a movie a year, so it's probably like only 2019 this came out.
Yeah,
I'll find the name of it. It's called like Rage. I think it might be called Rage.
Yeah, I've seen the picture of that.
Yeah, I think it's Rage.
Is it good?
It's not bad, but it's kind of standard Nick Cage, but it's also not. His character's very corny, Cage corny, and it's kind of that revenge Cage vibe. But this other one recently called Primal, I think you guys should watch. It's got an interesting story. He's like a big game animal hunter, and he basically gets stuck on this boat with this like assassin that's being transported. I think like that was caught like out of the state, and basically he has to use his like tactics of being like this like wild animal hunter to track this guy, and it all takes place on this boat in the middle of the ocean.
Oh, I'll check it out. Yeah, I see it on I think Netflix. Yeah. Huh.
Well, Pig, guys, check out Pig if you have the chance. It's romantic, it's engaging, it's thought provoking. It's Cage at its best, really. Check it out. Let us know what you give it. I think collectively we gave it a B+ overall. Dean gave it a B.
Yeah, we gave it a.
John gave it an A.
Give it a 9 on a Rotten Tomato on our real Apple scale. It's a 89 out of 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems about right because Dean went B, Dylan went B+, and I went A. Like we're right there, B to A, in that range. And it looks like from the reviews, everyone's saying the same thing. And actually, I mean, I've heard like Academy Award talk on this thing.
For a $4 million movie, that's big time.
I'm hearing some pretty good buzz on this thing. So,
well, it could be like don't they do some kind of like comeback award?
I don't know either. We have to look into that.
I thought there was some kind of comeback award, or there needs to be at least like best comeback, like role. Because that definitely would win that, I think. Because
there's breakout role, and then there should be another one.
Yeah. Huh.
Rebirth.
Well, that was fun, boys, gentlemen. That was awesome. Second podcast. That had a great time. I guess we'll talk off air on the next movie we'll do and kind of format, but I'm really enjoying these and doing these once a week and putting these out. So hopefully everyone's enjoying them. And like Dylan said, comment below and share and get people listening to this. It's fun.